Welcome back to beautiful Wijk. You see the scenic town with the players. They are inside in the playing hall, ready for the 11th round of the Tata Steel Masters in Wijk. It may be round 11, but it is not the 11th hour because there are 13 rounds in this tournament. I'm Robert Hess. Alongside me is my good friend, who I'm so glad to be reunited with, Grandmaster Hess and Naroditsky. Danya, you've been covering the last few rounds. How stoked are you for this home stretch?
Well, Robert, first of all, I'm super stoked to be commentating with you. I think it's going to be an incredible round. It's an amazing atmosphere, and it's amazing to cover this round with an incredible commentator. I think we're in for a big fight.
Welcome back, everyone. In this video, Abdusattorov versus Wenjun, Tata Steel. An amazing game, an amazing position. Let's hear what Danya has to say about this position.
Yes, this is a fantastic breakdown, by the way, of Black's options. And if people watching, you want to convert this into an instructive exercise, try to visualize, try to see how far ahead you can calculate. And this type of chaotic position presents an amazing opportunity for you to really work on getting that clear image of the board imprinted in your mind, which is what you have to do if you want to calculate these moves successfully.
So let me set the stage before I replay the live commentary by Grandmasters. In this position, Abdusattorov with the white pieces just play Rook A7. With Black, we have Wenjun. So, how does that work? Let me just break it down. Feel free to pause the video to analyze this position because this is quite complex. The Rook on A7 is attacking the bishop. So Black has to do something. One thing come to mind is the queen here could come to B8 that would attack the rook and defend the bishop. Queen B8, that's one move. But you could simply also move the bishop somewhere. You have three squares. And what they discuss in the commentary is maybe you can take on E4. Because if rook takes on B7, then you take a knight over here. So this is a critical position, and then there's a lot of variation from there. Let's go to the tape.
Let's visualize with our audience now. So queen to b8, knight takes d5, I lose a pawn. Doesn't look great. Bishop c6 saves the bishop, that's true, but knight takes e5, it comes with a shot at that bishop that is now on c6. That doesn't look appealing. Bishop a8, not available. Bishop c8, that also loses a piece because of knight takes bishop and the e7 bishop is hanging. Afterwards, can't get away with that for multiple reasons, in fact. So that leaves, besides the queen b8, are those pawn captures. D takes e4, or pawn to d4. And Danya, to my eyes, they all look problematic. White seems to be going up a pawn at minimum.
Yes, this is a fantastic breakdown, by the way, of Black's options. And if people watching, you want to convert this into an instructive exercise, try to visualize, try to see how far ahead you can calculate. And this type of chaotic position presents an amazing opportunity for you to really work on getting that clear image of the board imprinted in your mind, which is what you have to do if you want to calculate these moves successfully. So we see from the eval bar that there is a path. There is some very narrow path that maintains a playable position for Black. I think it is D takes e4, knight takes e5, and rather than queen b8, which walks into the fork on d7, queen to c7 there apparently is the best move, but you're also walking into a super nasty knight sack on f7. I would be shocked if Wenjun manages to come out of this alive.
Let's actually analyze that because D takes e4, knight takes e5, and you said queen c7. So not only are you seemingly ignoring the knight takes f7 tactics, you're walking into another pin along the 7th rank because now your bishop can't move, which means that at some point a knight d5 tactic is in the air, exploiting the pin along the 7th rank. So does knight takes f7 work, Donna? That's the big question. I know you want to hop right in. The engine says it does. King takes f7, and where is the queen a2 comes to mind? What else?
Okay. I would probably refrain from bishop takes e6 and then queen a2 because if you let the king run to a square like f5, that's surprisingly enough a very safe place to be. You do not want to give away your bishop unless you essentially have forced mate. So instinctively, yes, I like the look of queen a2. What does black do in response to it? Apparently that's not the right move, but it's also not a terrible move.
I don't have the answer to how black responds because it looked scary. And bishop takes e6. Wow. Okay. Imagine seeing that from a distance. We have seen, by the way, d takes e4, knight takes e5. So if Wenjun plays queen c7, we will get down into positions just like this. So instead of queen a2, if we just back it up a half move here, what other moves, Danya? You love these types of positions. What other moves come to your mind as you try to exploit the various pins here?
Well, after I spend time indulging myself and looking at the absurd moves, I'm also looking at, and I was actually covering this in a group class that I teach yesterday, that in these very chaotic positions, sometimes the hardest moves to spot are the quote-unquote most simple moves, but they're not really simple in the global sense. They're simple in the sense that you're not really engaging in more tactics. You're just like recapturing a pawn, or you're doing something that helps your position. But because we're taught to look for checks and captures and threats and forcing moves like pawn takes e4 can be hard to spot. I think this might be the key to the kingdom. And guess what, Robert? Let's give ourselves a pat on the back. We're following this line.
Wow. She plays queen c7.
Incredible Wenjun. Only move.
And she'll need to find a series of only moves. Look at her king on f7. So pawn takes e4, the calm approach from Danya. If the knight takes on e4, I'm just trying to get more pieces. I could see even a move like queen d7 coming to mind. There is no back rank checkmate because the bishop covers the c1 square. But my calculation, I didn't really calculate if I'm being honest. I was just suggesting a move. It's not accurate. I'm just teaming up on the e6 knight. If you take on d7, what? Oh my goodness! Are you serious?
That is brutal. Takes rook a8. Let's dance together. And what irony, Robert, that it's White's king who ends up in more trouble in this particular variation. White has to force a draw here, I think, with a knight e5 and knight d7.
Oh, wow.
Come on.
That is an incredible move. I love moves like rook a8 because this goes to show you always need to calculate that one step further as you showed a back rank checkmate, because in our heads we stop at a point that we think is good for us. Okay, just can you put on queen d7 takes one more time just so we can
absolutely
show everybody. The knight on e6 is pinned and it looks like you could team up on it. The rook on f8 is hanging. The bishop on b7 no longer has a defender. So if your rook is under attack and your bishop's under attack, you would think rook to b8 to defend, but you see that's unavailable because the knight covers that square. And so by process of elimination, once you get here, you see rook a8. But in your mind's eye, when you're visualizing this in your head, that back rank checkmate seems like an impossibility, and yet it is available. There was a knight on b6.
So now we need to break down this position. This is black to play. There's so much to uncork here. Not only did Grandmaster Naroditsky and Hess discuss this position, but there's some other variation that are very important. In the game, Wenjun played d takes e4, and that is the best move. Now, if the bishop comes here very quickly, you take. That's a bad move. If the bishop goes to c8, you take on c8, and now loose precise drop off. Rook take e7, game over. Now, bishop c6 is also an option. Here you have two ways to do it. Simply knight e5, attack c6, that's winning. But even taking here wins. The reason it wins, you trade everything, and then loose bishop here, drops your upper piece, game over. Now, very interesting, in the live broadcast, queen b8. And that seems to be a nice idea, because you defend and counterattack. However here, knight d5. What a beautiful move, because the bishop here defends over there, and if you capture here, you can recapture either way. So knight d5, attacking e7, and defending the rook. This is winning for white. So after something, the only decent move is taking on e4. And this is quite important. Of course, Abdusattorov, after 15 seconds, take on e5. And initially, Dania and Robert Hess, they say queen b8, but here you have another knight move. Remember in the variation over here, we said we could defend. So here they uncork knight bd7 with a nice fork, and keep in mind that bishop here defends the rook. So after take, black is losing. Queen c8, take, 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 and take. I feel like Hikaru. But this position, up in exchange, is clearly winning for white. So during the broadcast, I say, well, queen b8 is not good because of knight bd7. But queen c7 is a nice move. Defends the bishop and attack the knight. That's a double attack. And here, what was amazing is they saw, wait a minute, we can sack on f7. And that's what played in the game as well. Now, if the rook would take, you take first the knight, and then you take more material. So of course, after 13 seconds, Wenjun takes on f7 with the king. And now, we're at a key moment. They discussed that during the broadcast, but it's very complex. They didn't go to the entire position. What is the best move in this position for white? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, so how I'm gonna break it down is you have to look at candidate moves. So candidate move number one, queen a2, because you have the two pieces attacking on a diagonal. That's candidate move. Candidate move number two, you can take on e6 because the king has to move forward. And candidate move number three, GM Hess and Naroditsky says, wait a minute, I can simply take on e4, and that's a quiet move and very strong. Now that was all complex, let me break it down. Take, and they say in the broadcast that's don't cash in your pieces yet because after queen check here, the king comes here, and after check, the king hides, and remember, black is up a piece. So taking on e6 is not a good idea. What about taking on e4? So here, Daniel Naroditsky says maybe we can do that move. And what is the idea, right? The idea, let's say that you play a random move over here, you would simply do knight d5. And that's a very strong move, and you're gonna definitely win more material here. But after this move, they analyze knight e4. And they say that queen d7 seems to be winning, but it does not, because after take, white attacks two pieces at once. But rook a8 saves the day, because if you take the bishop, you have a back rank check, and you do checkmate. So in this position, they go and they say, oh my goodness, queen d7 seems to be winning, but it doesn't win. But what they fail to mention, and I use Stockfish for that, is queen d3 threatens to take on e4. Why does it threaten to take on e4? Because if I take here, and you take there, I can take here, and that bishop here is pinning that knight. So the knight cannot recapture. Alright, so this is an interesting move because let's say on rook d8, you have knight d5 with a great position for white. However, the best move wasn't to take on e4, it wasn't to take on e6, it was to play queen a2. And my boy, Nodirbek, Abdusattorov, leading the Tata Steel tournament, played that move. So this is a strong move. You don't take on e6, but now you have two pieces lining up against the black king. And this position they didn't discuss in detail, but that is key. If you move the king, simply you cash in on the piece and you're winning with the white pieces. Many moves lead to the win here. The best move would be rook d8, because on check, you can do that. And on 95, you can take. And if you take here, you take there. And black survives. So rook d8 was the best answer to queen a2. But in the game, Wenjun here make a mistake. And she ends up playing queen c6 here. Queen c6, defend e6. But then Abdusattorov take on b7, take on e6, the king moves, and he takes here, and the game continues like that. And white is winning. The king in the center. You have so much activity. But you know, discuss that in the broadcast. But eventually, this is too strong, right? The king in the middle cannot survive. And after a check like that, black resign, because if you do this, you can take on f7. And if you move the king, then clearly bishop c5, win the queen. So going back to this key position here, Wenjun played too quickly here. She had to play rook d8 in order to save the game. So again, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown using Grandmaster analysis and then going through all the variations they went through. Feel free to leave a comment, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I see you in the next one.